Among the many Touhou theories out there, Alice Margatroid has some of the most interesting and compelling in the series. What makes some of them so compelling is that there's no real way to disprove them aside from the fact they have yet to happen. Perhaps the most interesting of her theories, like most of them, involve her grimoire. These are the most interesting Alice grimoire theories that I think are somewhat possible. Before I get into the theories, let me first explain who Alice is and why her grimoire may be so important. Alice Margatroid is a character that was introduced in Touhou's 5th game in the series. This already makes her special as a character that was introduced in the PC98 era games of Touhou's 1 through 5, and also returned in the Windows era. Only 4 characters have ever done this, with 2 of them being Reimu and Marisa. In Touhou 5, Alice is a stage 3 boss but comes back later in the extra stage with her grimoire and turns out to be the extra stage boss. This establishes that at the least, the grimoire is a source of great strength for Alice. The grimoire is also established as possessing the ultimate magic. From then on, she is almost always seen with a book in her hands, but whether it is always the grimoire is up to discussion since the book does change slightly in later games. She appears in 3 mainline Windows games following the PC98 era, the first one being Touhou 7, Perfect Cherry Blossom. Her next appearance in the mainline was an Imperishable Night as a combo with Marisa. Subterranean Animism was her last mainline appearance where she also assisted Marisa. She's also in all of these spin-offs. Also, she makes and manipulates dolls. Okay, that's enough of the basics, now time for the theories. The first theory is perhaps the safest in terms of how possible it is. As previously mentioned, during Touhou 5, she attained the Grimoire of Alice, a book that was said to produce the ultimate magic, and it seems like it would contain amazing magic that couldn't be used without reading it. Well, ultimate magic could mean many things, but among them, the most reasonable is that it simply means the power to bring someone back to life. There's also the case of Sega resurrecting Yoshika in 10 Desires, but I don't really count this because it's really an incomplete resurrection, given that Yoshika isn't really alive anymore. While this theory holds no real precedent regarding the past, it does hold significance regarding the future. What I mean is, what if Touhou 20 features a significant character death? Even more so, what if that character was our duo antagonist, Marisa Kirisame? Here's what could happen in a future game or manga series. Marisa becomes a yokai. In the 60th chapter of Lotus Eater, Marisa finds herself dangerously close to turning into a yokai, which tells us that this can occur. Also, in perfect memento and strict sense, the article written on Marisa says something very interesting. It's possible that in the future, she may become a yokai magician. It is heavily insinuated that if this were to happen, Reimu, according to her rules for the human village territory, would have to kill Marisa. We know Reimu can kill humans that turn into yokai, since she does this in Forbidden Scrollery. As for the game itself, after Marisa is killed on stage 6, I think the extra stage would have to include Alice. In this extra, you would end up fighting Alice over the privilege to use her grimoire to resurrect Marisa. Then Marisa would be resurrected and all would be well. That, or you must go even further in the next game to do so, but I add more onto how I think the games might look in later theories. This theory is much tamer than the next, but it is entirely possible that something like this could happen, so I figured I should include it. This theory and the next sort of go hand in hand depending on how you view manipulating time, so I'm going to try to bunch them up. The idea of time manipulation being possible stems from the fact that there's a distinct disconnect between the PC98 era of games and the Windows era, not to mention Sakuya Izuoi's existence, which is a form of time manipulation in itself, even if it's still forward progressing. Touhou 6 is considered the starting point of the lore due to it being the reboot, but Zun himself has said that PC98 is canon. So what if Touhou's 1 through 5 were connected to the rest of the series? The way I think it could be possible is through Alice's grimoire. It is no coincidence that Alice is the last person you fight in Touhou 5, and it's also no coincidence that she is weaker initially until she has the grimoire. I think that sometime after the events of Touhou 5, Alice used the grimoire to change realities, rewriting time or changing dimensions to the one in which everything was slightly different. This can be backed up by the fact that when Reimu meets Alice in the Windows era games for the first time, Alice states, "Long time no see," but Reimu replies, "We've only just met." Then Alice says, "No, that's not what I meant." Alice then asks, "Don't you remember me?" Why would Alice know Reimu from a previous juncture if Reimu herself doesn't know? Well, maybe Alice knows because she is the one to rewrite realities. Of course she would know, right? The last meeting these two had was in the PC98 era, so it has to be that at the least. Alice can remember that era. Not to mention, in Perfect Cherry Blossom's own music comments by Zun himself, Zun states Alice is kind of a special character in the series. Now, the main issue with this theory is that in Touhou 9, Reimu meets Yuka, the only other character from PC98, and implies that she does know her in her statement, "I would have exterminated you long ago." Another thing is that when Reimu meets Yachie in Touhou 19, she states, "A flying tortoise. Ugh, what's this? My distant memory." This is a direct callback to the PC98 era of games where Reimu used Genji, a flying tortoise, to fly. Now, it does seem like when she remembers Genji, she almost feels an unpleasant feeling, so it is possible that her memories were altered along with the reality being changed by Alice, and remembering something from that era is uncomfortable. If her memories were altered, then Yuka may have been too insignificant to be fully removed from Reimu's memory, while Alice herself wasn't. Either way, there's quite a bit of compelling evidence that points toward Alice knowing more than she lets on. If I were to integrate this theory into a game, I think I would find a fun way to utilize the resurrection theory and this rewriting time theory to have it be in such a way that it spans across multiple games. In the first theory, I think it'd be good to have Reimu go to hell to revive Marisa from her soul, but upon arriving, she has to help down there to even make it to Marisa, since in Touhou 17, she sort of half-assed her resolution of the issue down there. Upon doing the 6 stages as normal, I think the extra could involve Reimu reviving Marisa, but when she uses the Grimoire, it switches back to the PC98 era. Reimu is in hell and Marisa is back alive, but now it is PC98, so Marisa is slightly different, and Reimu has to resolve a new issue. In the next game, Reimu and Marisa would seek out Alice in order to revert reality back to normal. They would fight Alice on stage 6, but the extra stage boss would be both Alices at once, an ultimate fight for reality itself. Of course, Reimu would eventually win and use one Grimoire to revert reality back to how it was, and use the other Grimoire to revive Marisa, since there were 2 Alices. These theories are sort of just some that I think would be very interesting to occur. I do think it'd be fun to have a connection between the PC98 and Windows era, so until we know exactly what the Grimoire does, I want to entertain the theory in which Alice rewrote the world into the one that it is today. You could probably find many ways to combine the resurrection theory and the rewriting reality one, but for the most part, I think you would have to really have 2 different Grimoires to get that to happen. Other than that, I don't really have many more theories, so if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. If this video gets some support, maybe I'll give some other theories some more thought. Or maybe I'll give this theory another shot as well. Though, let's be real, as far as games go, Zun probably won't break the status quo. Also, recently I've been trying to stream Touhou 15 until I beat the extra, so feel free to stop by on that. I'll probably upload a video on it at some point. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next Touhou video.